Today's top stories and your weather forecast in the first 8 minutes. Now on 8 News at 11.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Juan Condi.
And I'm Christina Farrick. A historic day in the Commonwealth after nearly 6 weeks of testimony, evidence, jury deliberations, much more. Former Governor Bob McDonnell and his wife convicted of corruption.
McDonnell's the first governor ever tried and found guilty in the history of the Commonwealth.
We have all angles of this story covered tonight.
Let's head first to 8 News reporter Mark Tenya for comments from the distraught governor right after the ruling.
It's really an unbelievable and shocking day here at federal court in Richmond as Bob and Maureen McDonnell were found guilty of most of the charges that they face. Now, barring an appeal, the former governor and former vice presidential hopeful will now be headed to prison.
The former governor appeared calm and confident before walking into court Thursday.
I mean, waiting on the jury is, I think, the toughest part of any case. A lot of time as a lawyer waiting on juries myself, but anyway, I've just got immense faith in the providence of God.
But a visibly distraught Bob McDonnell emerged as he was found guilty on 11 of the 13 counts he faced. His wife guilty on 9 of the 13 counts, all related to the more than $165,000 in loans they accepted from businessman Johnny Williams. The former governor only having this to say before leaving.
Thank you all for the way you've handled this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
After 5 weeks of testimony and evidence, it took a jury 3 days, 17.5 hours of deliberating before coming back with guilty verdicts.
I'm surprised at an adverse verdict that quickly.
Bob McDonnell's lead defense attorney, Hank Asbill, says they will appeal.
Obviously, I'm upset about it, and I wish that I could have brought it home for my client today.
Public corruption is the FBI's top criminal investigative priority, and cases like this are extremely important.
Meanwhile, investigators and the U.S. attorney that headed the case called it a sad day for the state.
This is a difficult and disappointing day for the Commonwealth when public officials turn to financial gain in exchange for official acts. We have little choice but to prosecute the case.
Our team coverage continues now with 8 News reporter Parker Slayball, who spoke with one of the members of the jury.
Mark, for the past 28 days, 12 jurors have been listening to every piece of evidence and testimony in this trial. They've also, as you said, been deliberating for the past 17.5 hours. Tonight, I spoke with one juror who asked us to hide their identity, including their voice. They told me they gave this case a lot of thought and took the charges very serious. But in the end, they say the guilty verdict for count 1 was fairly easy and decided immediately after deliberations started. The juror member who has asked to remain anonymous tells me they had only lived in Virginia for a short time before being summoned to be a juror for the McDonnell's federal corruption trial.
I didn't know who he was or anything about it. I've only lived here a short time.
The defense in this case had tried to argue the McDonnell's marriage was on the rocks and broken, so they couldn't be conspiring. The juror says they didn't buy it.
We found it hard to believe, especially when we learned that he only moved out a week before the trial. And the enormous amount of evidence the prosecution gave us of text, email, phone calls during this whole period.
You believe their marriage was happy?
I don't know if it was happy or unhappy, but there was definitely communication between the two.
Was there ever anybody who said, I don't think he's guilty at all?
No.
The juror member says, make no mistake, they took their job serious and knew the implications.
If Governor McDonnell, former First Lady Maureen McDonnell, their family, if they're watching this, what would be your message to them?
Just that we didn't take it lightly. That it was hard for us, but we did what we had to do based on the law. And it doesn't mean we didn't feel their pain or think about the ramifications that it's going to have on their life. We did, and that's what made it so hard.
Now, this juror member did have a difficult time with our interview, becoming emotional at different points. Now, this juror really said a lot of fascinating things. They did say they viewed the Johnny Williams testimony differently because he did have immunity, but they also say he had no reason to lie, so for the most part, they believed him. Live in the newsroom tonight, I'm Parker Slayball, 8 News. Juan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Parker. The verdict obviously has long-term effects for the McDonald's. Jail, certainly one of them, but there could also be a huge financial blow to the couple. 8 News senior reporter Nate Eaton continues our team coverage live now from outside the federal courthouse. Nate?
Yeah, Juan, think about it. A year ago tonight, Bob and Maureen McDonnell were in the governor's mansion just a couple of blocks from where we're standing. But today they walked out of court convicted felons, and that means they're losing a lot.
It affects your right to vote. It affects your right to hold most elective offices. It affects your right to own any firearms. It's going to affect your ability to obtain a lot of professional licenses.
Just some of the rights Bob and Maureen McDonnell no longer have. Tonight, as they await their sentencing, the couple prepares to meet with a federal probation officer who will conduct a pre-sentence report.
It's a detailed background investigation that the judge will use to decide what the sentence will be.
The former governor could also lose his pension, all because of a law he signed in 2011. It states a member of the Virginia retirement system forfeits their retirement benefits if they get convicted of a felony.
He was a local prosecutor. He was a attorney general. He had many different jobs at the state level. And so, you know, I would think his retirement in those situations upon a final conviction is in danger.
McDonnell's annual pension is reportedly at least $65,000, but here's the catch. The law requires a former employee's supervisor to alert the Virginia retirement system about a felony conviction. So who's McDonnell's supervisor? Tonight, we wait for the answer to that question and many others.
It's absolutely unprecedented. It's never happened in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
McDonnell could also lose a credit he receives to pay for medical bills and insurance purposes, and he could become disbarred, prohibiting him from practicing law in the Commonwealth. Now, it's unclear if he loses all of those benefits immediately or if it will happen when he and Maureen are sentenced in January. Reporting live tonight at the federal courthouse in Richmond, I'm Nate Eaton, 8 News.
Alrighty, thank you, Nate. Thank you, Parker. Thank you, Mark. Once again, a quick recap. Former Governor Bob McDonnell and his wife, Maureen, found guilty on corruption charges.
And we're told both Bob and Maureen McDonnell wept as the verdicts were read in court this afternoon. The jury returned the verdict after a 5-week trial, 3 days of deliberations. The former governor was found guilty on 11 out of 13 counts. His wife, Maureen, found guilty on 9 of 13 counts.
The couple was charged with accepting thousands of dollars in gifts and loans from former Star Scientific CEO Johnny Williams in exchange for promoting Star's products. And of course, 8 News has been on top of this trial from the very beginning, and we will continue to keep you up to speed on all the remaining elements, a possible appeal, the sentencing process, and more. You'll always find the latest at WRIC.com and on social media. Christina?